Hello people of the internet, today we are here to ask the question, Inaros.
Yeah! What is it good for?
Indeed, what is the Warframe Inaros good for? To answer this we will take a look at its abilities inside the simulacrum before taking it out into the live environment to see it in action, and then we will finish off by looking into how to acquire this Warframe. Inaros' passive ability is called Undying. Instead of simply bleeding out, Inaros has the ability to try and self-resurrect. During the standard bleed out phase, Inaros will be entombed in a sarcophagus, and will be able to siphon health from surrounding enemies. Inaros will gain 0.5% of the health required to resurrect for every 1% of the health and shield it drains from enemies, meaning you will need to defeat 2 enemies with this ability to self-res. This is very hard to do against heavily armoured enemies such as these, so I would not rely on this too often. Against Infested and Corpus it can work well, but not here. The other passive that Inaros has, which is not mentioned here, is the fact that if Inaros pulls off a melee finisher on an enemy, it will restore 20% of Inaros' health. More on that later. Inaros' first main ability is Desiccation. Blast enemies with a wave of cursed sand that blinds them and steals their health. As stated in the tooltip, this ability will restore health when it ticks on the enemy. However, as the ability does not deal that much damage as standard, it will not refund that much health either, as health refunded is only 25% of the damage dealt. It does however open the enemies up to finishers, which as I mentioned earlier will refund 20% of Inaros' health when performed. Inaros' second ability is Devour. Hold power to trap target in quicksand and draw them in for devouring. This steals health and ultimately creates a friendly sand shadow. As the tooltip states, holding down this ability will draw in an enemy and Inaros will start to devour it. This will replenish Inaros' health the fastest out of all of its abilities, so bear that in mind. What the tooltip does not state is that once Inaros has started to devour the victim, he becomes invincible, meaning you can continue to devour until you have full health without worrying about incoming damage. This is not the case while the enemy is being dragged towards Inaros though, so do bear that in mind if you are using it at low health. Again, as the tooltip stated, if you drain all of the enemy's health pool, it will then become a friendly sand shadow and fight for you until defeated. Inaros' third ability is Sandstorm. Become a whirling spiral of sand that sends enemies flying and devours those trapped in quicksand. As stated in the tooltip, this ability turns Inaros into a sandstorm that will disperse of all enemies in close proximity. If you happen to have trapped some enemies in quicksand before using it, by using Devour on them for instance, it will continue to devour them while the sandstorm is active. It uses a lot of energy, so with most Inaros builds it will not last long, but it can get you out of a sticky situation from time to time. Inaros' fourth ability is Scarab Swarm. Charge to transform health into hardened Scarab armour. Discharge to blast enemies with the Scarab Swarm. Survivors have their health drained and bestowed on allies. Again, as the tooltip stated, holding down this ability will drain your health to create Scarab armour. Each percent of Scarab armour will drain 29 health from Inaros, meaning in order to gain 100% of the buff, Inaros must have more than 2900 health to start with. When max Scarab armour will give a 100% additive buff to your current armour stat, so keep that in mind, as a fully maxed out steel fibre is going to work out a lot better for this ability than a lesser mod. The other great thing about this armour buff is that it does not get reduced by damage. The only way to remove it is to discharge it yourself, which will then grant a health restoration buff to you and your allies, should the enemies you have cast it on survive. In this case you can see that I apply it to one enemy and it quickly spreads to all of the other enemies around that one. This can greatly increase your health regen while also crowd controlling the enemies, as they will be waving their arms around at the scarabs instead of shooting at you. The health regen will also be granted to any allies that are close enough to receive it, so it is always worth using this ability when playing in a group, especially if an ally is close to death in an arbitration or similar. Now that we know what Inaros can do, let's take it out into the live environment. Inaros, as you may have already guessed, is fantastic for survival missions or any sort of endurance runs really. If you are looking to get into endurance runs, taking Inaros initially will give you a chance to get used to them and give you a better understanding on how the scaling enemies and damage works in Warframe. If you are a Rhino main and its iron skin is no longer cutting it, then give Inaros a try, as you may find it much more resilient. The one thing I did not go over inside the simulacrum, which I will now, is the fact that Inaros does not have any shields whatsoever. Keep that in mind when modding it, because mods such as redirection will do absolutely nothing for Inaros, as they only increase the base stat by a certain percentage. As Inaros has no shields at all, this will always remain at 0, regardless of the mod's strength. Apart from that, with the right setup, Inaros can and will make you feel invincible at times. So you have seen what Inaros can do. Now let's take a look at how to acquire this Warframe. Inaros comes from the aptly named Sands of Inaros quest, which can be purchased from Barrow-Katia for 100 ducats and 25,000 credits. For those that do not know, Barrow-Katia is a travelling merchant that shows up once a fortnight at a random relay. He will often carry primed mods and special weapons and will always have this quest in stock. To earn ducats, you can simply sell any unwanted prime parts at the stations beside Barrow. Once you have purchased this quest, you can head back to your orbiter to start it. You will need to find and defeat a set number of specific enemies while venturing into a sand tomb on Mars to complete the quest, and once it is completed, you will have Inaros. There you go, we have taken a look at Inaros and what it is good for. If you like this video, then please help me out by clicking the like button. If you would like me to make a video like this for any other Warframe I have not yet covered, then let me know down in the comments below and I will do my best to create it. Also, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified when the next video arrives. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next time.